everyone. Hello, everyone. It's Kimbal.
Hello.
Hello,
We're walking?
Kimbal. Yeah, let's
Hey.
walk. Kimbal, maybe you better introduce yourself.
All right, cool. I'm Kimbal. I've been friends with Carolina for quite many years. We know each other from the Magma Group.
Yes.
Done many shows together, painting exhibitions. What do I say? I'm a painter.
I think you are predominantly painter.
I'm a
would
painter.
say.
I mean,
Yeah.
I make paintings. I
do
also
a lot of
do
things.
performance, video,
Videos.
kind of sound work, and yeah, multidisciplinary artist. I
Oh
guess.
yes, this sounds
Um,
quite good.
But
and it's true.
but the painting is kind of the thing which kind of carries through. It sort of feeds into lots of different aspects of my practice to do with mark making, drawing, map making, storytelling, and yeah, it kind of all revolves around different themes to do with place and the imagination, imagined places, imagined worlds, and also real places, which are telling stories about places and maps. It's kind of
Nice.
more or less what.
Yeah, places.
Through here, what do you reckon?
This is why we are walking. Kimbal, you are back
Mm-hmm.
in London.
Yes.
You've been away for a while in
Yeah.
York,
Yeah.
yes? And you are back in the warehouses.
Yeah.
And how it is to be back here?
It's great. It's great. So I am living in that building just there. You can turn around probably.
Yeah.
That's where I'm living, up there.
Right.
Since January. Courtesy of our lovely friend Chiara, who is traveling at the moment. We're in her room, and it's really nice being back living in I used to live in one of the warehouses in Stamford Hill, and I'm.
When was that? You moved out in
2015, I think. Yeah. And I was living in South London for about 6 years, and Amsterdam as well for a bit. So it's really nice coming back to the warehouse actually, and sort of living in this place, being around lots of people, lots of different people.
Yeah, it's quite an alternative way of living, I would say. Tell me, do you think living in a warehouse influence your art?
Thank you. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
I don't know. Does it influence my art? That's a good question.
Because you create in your studio.
Yeah, so basically I have not had a studio for quite a few, well, for about 2 years. I've not had a studio space. And I was living in York last year, and I had a studio in my shed, which was kind of
still kind of studio.
Yeah, I mean, but
Not a
it
proper
wasn't
one.
really. And it was, I was always by myself, and whereas, and then we moved into the warehouse here, and I was working from our room. And I started doing work on paper, drawings and things, because before I had this proper space and I could work on big paintings.
Yeah.
But over here and also in York, in the shed, I was doing smaller work. So in a way, like my work was kind of being framed by the studio space that was available. But now in the warehouse, so I mean, I've done some smaller works there. But what's been really cool about living in the warehouse is the kind of connections and collaborative possibilities, because I've been collaborating with our flatmate Alex, he's a painter. We've done some sort of collaborative painting things together, which really kind of is only possible in that kind of setting, like what you've also been doing, like collaborating with housemates and artists, that you have that kind of possibility to just jam and have an evening of painting, which you don't really do so much in the studio.
No.
I mean, the studio is very much like a kind of a solo thing, isn't it?
Yeah, unless it's a shared space, then things like that might happen.
Yeah.
But
so
yeah.
my studio now. So I've basically moved into a studio in Bow.
Right.
Which we're going to come and visit, I think, sometime this week, maybe.
I think it will be wonderful to pop in and really talk about your art.
Yeah, it'd be great.
More,
nice.
and maybe we can see what you're
Totally
up to now. And tell me, lockdown. You think lockdown influenced your art?
Lockdown was like a production line for me. I just like I ended up just making all these really small paintings because of the artist support pledge.
Right,
So
that was a good thing.
It was good. Yeah, so I ended up making loads of small sort of A4 size paintings, working from home. But to be honest, I'm kind of I like it was a really good experience, a good way of sort of thinking about things differently. But I'm quite glad, or rather, I've sort of stopped doing. I'm glad to have got back into working on bigger stuff, larger scale pieces, because it's more. I don't know. I just don't really feel like I can get quite as expressive with the smaller ones.
You were doing bigger things, oil, as much as I remember.
Yeah.
And now you've changed, so it will be good to find out what you are.
Yeah, so it'd be great to show you my new work.
now.
Come and visit my studio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And come and see some of the new work. So my new stuff is acrylic. I've kind of moved away from oil into acrylic.
And I think stylistically,
and brush strokes and mark making and things. No, it's all fun.
I've seen something online. So
check it out.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we are gonna meet Kimbal in his studio, and this is where you currently live. That's a front.
Cara house.
Yeah, Cara house, warehouses.
And now it's raining. So
And now it's raining, so it's time to finish. So see you soon. Bye bye. Right, so we are in Kimbal's studios. We had a coffee because the day is really tiring, and Kimbal did quite a lot of miles on his bike somewhere to New Cross. So yeah, we had a coffee.
Might need another one to
Yes,
really.
yes. So this is really serious.
Yeah.
But anyway, we are in Kimbal Studios. Not studio. And these are new works. Wait a minute. Kimbal.
Yeah.
You moved back to London. You moved back to London in January.
I did. Yeah, I moved back in January, and then
Let's have a
moved into this space.
Yeah.
In April, I think.
Yeah.
May time. Yeah.
Sorry.
So there's a studio with Bow Arts. And it's great. I really like this studio. I'm just going to sort of show you so this is the outside. I've got this nice little window. Normally you can see the river there, but you can't quite see there. You can just about see it. And so there's lots of light. It's really nice.
We are recording this with a little telephone this time. Unfortunately, we don't have a proper equipment, but anyway, hopefully it will turn relatively okay. Kimbal, you moved to London in January. Few months later, in April, you found this place. There is a really big change. As I told you, I see this change very refreshing.
Yeah.
Are you refreshed?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've changed. I mean, I think change is always a good thing. It's always good to change. You know, I think change really does well for me, in the sense that, you know, it's nice to be in a different place, to you know, to move. I mean, in this case, it's moving back to London. You know, I know London anyway from before, but London, you always can have like a new London. You know, when you come back, there's so many different Londons, and I feel like I'm living a different London now than I did last time. Also like a different place, a different location. You know, here I don't know this area before. But also like a different style. Like, I mean, I'm working with acrylic now instead of oil paint.
Yeah.
You know, like some of my previous work was you know, very much you know, working with the material of oil paint mixed with varnish and like that sort of like multi-layered sort of effect. I'm gonna actually just grab that one.
Yeah.
You know, and whereas, you know, the stuff that these new ones are with acrylic, and they're more, yeah, they're equally vibrant. Yeah, so that's like one of the previous ones. You can see how it's sort of like quite shiny here. You get the reflection, and that was done with squeegees, and whereas these new ones are done with brushes. And there's something quite, I don't know, I'm just having lots of fun with it, you know? It's really fun. I think I felt like I was getting a bit static with the previous work. Well, not necessarily static, but it was just, you know, I felt like I needed to take a break. You know, when I was doing that work before, I felt like I'd achieved something with it, and I needed to stop and reflect, and then maybe come back to painting with a different angle. And now I feel like I'm coming into it with that different angle, which actually came a bit through drawing. Because while I was in York, I didn't really have a studio, but I was working from my shed, which was, you know, full of spiders, and it was really cold. But you know, and also, you know, like, and I didn't have, you know, space, so I started doing work on paper, you know, smaller like paintings on paper, but also drawings. And I think, you know, with drawing, the main difference is that you have this like one point of contact. You know, you've got like the point of the pencil. You know, whereas with like a brush, you know, or a squeegee is wide. You know, so you have like and there's something about that sort of immediacy of the immediacy. I think that's it. It's the immediacy of putting the drawing point onto the pencil, and like you draw and it makes a mark. And I, you know, I've always liked doing painting, but with this stuff where it's like the squeegee thing, you know, it's like, it was more kind of chaotic, you know, the marks kind of, they're more like marks that sort of emerge. But whereas with this painting and also the drawing, it's like this idea of the, you know, the trace of something. It's immediate, and with acrylic, there's also that very much, the quickness of it. So I feel like there's like this transformation and freshness of like.
And I think I can see your, let's say, old colours that I would immediately recognize your paintings. But also I see a lot of new colours, and they are very very bright, very cheerful, really refreshing. I quite like this word that something is fresh or refreshed, and this is what I feel. This is just very vibrant.
I mean, I guess I want them to be to be fresh and vibrant, and I want them to be positive. You know, I want there to be a sort of like in a positive sort of thing to them. But also, you know, so I'm like, so what I've got really into is like these color relationships. So one thing that I've discovered, like my paintings before were always like really bright, but one thing that I've learned is that the brightness is only coming because of the relationship with other colors. So So I got really into greys. So even though they're sort of actually really bright, the main difference I think with the previous paintings is that there's much more subtlety in the colours. So like I've got much more kind of like these grey bits, so like greyish white, grey and greyish colours, and then offsetting that with the bright ones. So there's much more nuance I think in the colours, and that's probably the main difference.
Right.
So kind of like mixing different shades and different variations of colour.
Let me come closer.
Yeah, so like
so you would.
So here you can see sort of these grey sort of marks, and so if I was this is a super bright orange, but it's only really that orange up by its own. If the only thing you see is that orange, it's not actually that bright,
Right.
But it's because of the relationship between with that pink next to it and that green, and so it's really it's thinking about color relationships.
Right.
But the also about like refreshing. So like this series of work is called reconfigurations. So it's kind of like figurations, but in the sense because there are kind of figures and bodies and shapes that are emerging in them. They're not necessarily intended that way, but there are somehow bodily forms that appear, and I'm a bit more conscious about that than I used to be. But also, there's something about. So there's the figuration, but then there's also the reconfiguration. So when I'm making these paintings, I start off with something, and as I work through, it kind of morphs and it turns into something else. So there's this idea of like transformation, and starting in one direction, and then as I go, it turns into something completely different. So like if I show you, so if you look at this one here. This is one that I'm sort of working on at the moment, which is, so this is kind of like an early layer. But this will probably change completely. I don't really know where this painting is going. I haven't really figured out what's happening here, and at the moment, it's kind of become a bit static because it feels like the shape that I started with.
Right.
Is the same one that it's becoming, and that means that it's not really working because I feel like I need to make it become something different.
I see.
It needs to transform into something else. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen here, but there needs to be some sort of reconfiguration.
Right. So that's your reconfiguration.
Yes.
Interesting. And the approach is that different? How did you work before?
So, I mean, in a sense, it's not really hugely different because I think I've always had that sense of starting somewhere and then letting the piece sort of develop on its own accord. It sort of, I start in one direction or I have an idea and then it morphs through the process. But I think what is happening with these is that because I'm working in acrylics and because the acrylics are much faster, in terms of, they dry faster and they're more immediate, they're quicker. I feel like that process is faster. So previously with the oil paint, so like, with these layers, I basically wait for each layer to dry before working on the next one. And so it's like I have a sitting and I work on it and it's sort of, and then I let it dry and then I look at it for days and then it's sort of, then I think, oh, what do I do next? But with these ones, the difference is that conversation happens immediately. It's always, it's an instant conversation. I sit and look at it and it's like, okay, now the next thing. And also I can't change it. With this, once it's dry, it's sealed and I can wipe it off. you know, and I can always like, because it's varnish, you know, I can always just like wipe it off and go back to the next. It's like hitting save, you know, that like save thing on the computer where you save and you can always go back to the last thing. But with the acrylic, it's more like a drawing. You know, you can't just like erase it. You can't. You have to just like keep on going. So it's like that conversation with sort of. You can't go back
I
on
understand.
it.
Yeah. What I like, what you say. Shall I see?
Yeah.
What I like what you say is you use the word conversation.
Yeah. So there is. Should we put this? Put it like that.
Of an artist.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I see it as a conversation. I see the whole thing as a conversation, really. Like for me, the whole process of making the painting is a conversation. You know, it's my conversation with the materials. It's my conversation with the painting, and I'm asking the painting. I don't know what the painting is yet. You know, for me, it's like I start the conversation because I have the paint and I initiate it. And I kind of put down like the main ingredients, but I don't necessarily know what the painting is because I need the painting to tell me something, and I need to spend some time with the painting to really, to kind of have a sense of like understanding what the painting is telling me, and I don't necessarily know what the painting is telling me until I've spent a bit of time with it. So a lot of the time with the painting, I literally just sit here, you know, on that couch thing, and I just sit and I look and I ask, what is it? You know, where is it going? Because I don't know. And then I might kind of have this idea of like, okay, cool. With this painting, I think this bit is not working, or I feel like it needs something in here. You know, maybe like a red, or maybe it needs like a blue, or maybe it needs a big line, or maybe, you know, or like maybe I start seeing that there's like some kind of something emerging that I recognize and I want to enhance it, or, you know, make it more figure-like or less figure-like, or maybe like, I don't know what it is, but there's so that, but then the actual, you know, when I maybe try to do that thing that I started, it maybe turns into something different, you know, or like I'll put a mark and it'll be like, oh no, that looks terrible, or that didn't work how I wanted it to, and so then, but then it's already there. It's like when you have a conversation, you know, like you say something, you know, like maybe you're having an argument and you say something because you're angry, and then you take it back, but you can't really take it back because you've already said it, you know, it's already there. You know, so it's the same with the painting. It's like you put the mark, and it's like, and it's there. You can't take it back. It's like it's happened. It's already there, and it's like each mark is a trace of something that happens, like a word that's been said, or do you know what I mean? It's that kind of idea.
Interesting conversation then. And Kimbal, do you still do another things like video or definitely music?
Yeah, I've been doing.
Or you now focus on painting rather than another media?
Right now, I'm mostly working on these paintings. I have been working on some music in the last year. It's a bit of a long-term project, but I've been collecting sound samples from different places around. When I was traveling in Portugal and Spain, but also, you know, around London, some sounds from environments, and using those sounds to create music with. So like modifying the samples and really what I want to do with it. I mean, this is sort of like the long term thing, but I'm interested in this idea that sounds, you know, I'm interested in this idea that places, you know, like a lot of my work is about this idea about places, imagined places, and kind of like, you know, these are sort of like imaginary things, imaginary landscapes, maybe, you know, something inside my head. Whereas with the music, I want it to be, you know, taking something from a place. So in this case, sounds. So like the sounds of the trees, the sounds of whatever, the wind, the sounds of, you know, some sort of rhythmic sounds, and then using that to create a representation of it. So a bit like a you know, a painting of a landscape, but in this case, more of a sound composition based on a place. So it's something I want to do more with. I've like I've recorded a few tracks, and also some work which is exploring drawing and sound. So basically kind of collecting drawings of how places sound. Kind of being somewhere, closing your eyes, and then drawing what you can hear.
Okay.
So like closing your eyes, tuning into the sound. You know, like the texture of you know, maybe like you hear something going past, you know, and you kind of you make a mark. You know? And I've done this like as a participatory activity. So I invite people to make drawings of a sound wherever they are. Right. And then I collect recordings of their sounds in the place, and then use those to create a, you know, soundscape. So, yeah, things along these lines.
You did also this mapping project that was always quite intriguing for me. What you really mean and what for, but actually, when I've seen the result, it was really great.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think that all of it really is about maps. You know, I think that's really what my work is really about. You know, like a map is a representation of a place. Loosely speaking, you know, it's like a visual, or you know, map doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, a visual thing. It could also, you know, in a way, I'm thinking that my sound work they're also maps. Like a map is some form of representation of a place in an abstract way. Yeah. And I think that like all of my artwork is kind of that, you know, it's like abstract representations of spaces and places, both the ones that are like real, but also the imaginary ones.
Right. But now when you are saying it came to my mind that, do you think you are making some traces of the places that you have seen, you have been, you have experienced, you feel, or you react to?
Definitely.
Is it?
Absolutely, yeah. No, definitely. And I think that, you know, like coming back to your first question about, you know, place, and like being in a new place and how that influences, like, you know, how that influences your work. I mean, for me, like these new paintings are a reaction to my new environment. You know, it's because I'm now here in London, you know, and particularly here, like, you know, in the studio, it's all the things that are going on now in my life which are influencing this. 100%. It's very much about what it is to be in a place. Right. You know, and how that influences.
Right. So, what I can really wish you to change your place very often. Then you would really develop in very unpredictable way.
You know, change is good. You know, and what you said about like it would be good for me to always move location. Yeah, definitely. I think so. I don't really see myself as like being always like static in the same place. I think that like I get really inspired by being in new places. You know, a lot of my work, you know, a lot of the more like project-based work that I've done, the mapping projects and stuff, and the videos. You know, it's been, you know, through artist residencies, being somewhere and really responding to that place. And that's not to say that you can't travel within your own place, because I mean, you know, one of the things that, you know, like within London, you can see so many different Londons. You know, I've lived here like pretty much my whole life, but you know, there's so much of this city that I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
and like now, just you know, by changing location, you know, like moving from from like you know, from North London to South London, and then back, you know, and now like East London, you know, it's got that, you know, a different perspective, you know, and I think going away and coming back, you know, there is a refreshing, there's something refreshing, definitely, you know, like, yeah, you don't want to stay the same forever, you know, like, but what's good, what I've noticed is that, like, you know, sometimes I look back at old sketchbooks, you know, like in a way, like with these paintings, even though it's something new, it is new, it's different, I've never done anything like this before. At the same time, it's definitely responding to stuff that I've done before, but not even just the last thing that I did, but even, you know, like from when I started painting in the first place, you know, if I you know, I feel like to some extent, these paintings remind me of like some of the very first paintings I did, you know, when I first started, like 12 years ago or something. In the sense of the type of composition, or in the sense of like the ideas as well about you know, imaginary places. Like actually, I looked at I posted it on my Instagram. I don't know if you saw it. Like there was a picture of a drawing, a painting I did for my A levels at school. And it's like a painting of some. It's a painting based on some a construction I made out of cardboard boxes, and it looks a little bit like it looks like a kind of some buildings or alleyways that, you know, you're looking through and it's mysterious. And I did a painting based on this.
Okay.
And there's also a painting of like a car park. But they're these kind of, you know, spaces, paintings of spaces, but sort of mysterious spaces where you kind of like can't really see what's what. And in a way, I think that, you know, my new stuff is playing with those ideas as well. So there's this kind of like, you know, there's new stuff, but it's also returning to so this idea of you know, circular patterns, you know, like you repeat things.
Right.
Yeah. My tattoo here, you can see.
All right.
Which is like, I got this tattoo when I was 18 with a friend. She's got the same one, but they keep on appearing, and here they are as well. Look, these squares here. You see? Yeah. So.
Right.
Sometimes you can't really explain things. Yeah.
Things happen.
Yeah.
3 squares.
Yeah.
I think we had a quite nice conversation.
Thanks for coming over.
I really enjoyed it.
I'll have a solo exhibition at Jane Newbury Gallery in Dulwich, which is in Dulwich Village, which is going to be in November, probably mid-November. Don't know the date yet.
Right,
yeah.
so you have a few more months. I think it will be nice, bright, colourful.
For sure.
I'll be there.
Cool, nice,
Yeah.
great, cool,
Oh,
nice.
great. Thank you, Kimbal.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
That's great.
And don't forget to follow Kimbal.
Carolina, subscribe.
Yes.
This is-
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.